The stories that made news and made history. The places that mattered to us and the people who made Central Illinois home. Join us from the vault.
Welcome, I'm Matt Metcalf. Trains helped settle Central Illinois and for decades provided a source of good-paying jobs and a sense of freedom. But when cars became more affordable and convenient, the days of the short lines were numbered. In 1970, WCIA produced The Last Ride of the Cannonball that examined the decline of passenger rail service in our area. And we present part of that now. It's from the vault, 1970.
To the wide Pacific shore, from the queen of flowing mountains to the south bells by the shore. She's mighty tall and handsome and known quite well by all. She's the combination on the Wabash Cannonball. Listen to the jingle, the rumble, and the roar as she glides along the woodland, through the hills and by the shore. Hear the mighty rush of the engine, hear that lonesome hobo squall. You're traveling through the jungles on the Wabash Cannonball.
That's the way they used to sing about the Cannonball. But that was years ago. It's not even the Wabash Cannonball anymore. The Wabash line has been taken over by the Norfolk and Western. The N&W still runs the Cannonball every day, but it's shrunk to 2 coaches and losing passengers and money. And the railroad is fighting a running battle with the Interstate Commerce Commission over whether there's a need for the train anymore. The railroad says no.
Well, in 1969, we lost a little over $700,000. These are out-of-pocket costs. These are not allocated costs. This is $750,000 for things like crew cost, fuel cost, and just for the operation of this train.
There's no question in my mind that the dominant forces in the railroad industry would like to abolish all passenger service as quickly as possible.
Good evening, I'm Paul Davis. 40 years ago, there were more than 20,000 long-distance passenger trains serving the United States. Today, there are fewer than 500, and their numbers declining every year. The Norfolk and Western, the Illinois Central, most of the major lines are losing heavily on passenger service in a nation that increasingly prefers to drive or fly. There are some who think long-distance rail passenger service in this country is headed for complete extinction, and even the optimists concede that the decade of the 70s will likely see the last ride of many passenger trains, like the Wabash Cannonball.
Listen to the jingle, the rumble, and the roar as she glides along the woodland, through the hills and by the shore. Hear the mighty rush of the engine, hear that lonesome hobo squall. You're traveling through the jungles on the Wabash Cannonball.
From the vault, celebrating the rich history of Central Illinois. Brought to you in part by the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library and Museum. Online at presidentlincoln.illinois.gov.
From the great Atlantic Ocean to wide Pacific shore.
A century and more ago, the railroads played a key role in the settlement of Illinois, indeed of the whole Midwest. When the railroads came, one historian has written, Eastern Illinois between 1850 and 1856 settled as if by enchantment. It blossomed with towns and farms. The decade of the railroads, the 1850s, saw Illinois' population more than double. The iron horse replaced that other horse as the way to get around. Railroad men developed their own heroes and their own folklore and songs. Wabash Cannonball is probably the most popular railroad song ever written. It's been recorded hundreds of times, and different versions have been found around the world. Early railroad records show two trains named the Cannonball in the 1880s. One ran from Chicago to Kansas City. The other made the run from St. Louis to Omaha. At 27 miles an hour, it was one of the fastest things on rails. The Cannonball disappeared from railroad schedules for most of this century. Then, in 1950, the Wabash Line pinned the name on its Detroit to St. Louis run, hoping, perhaps, that nostalgia would help lure passengers back. It doesn't appear to have made much difference.
Boys on the Wabash Cannonball.
The Cannonball today is actually two trains, one leaving Detroit, the other leaving St. Louis each morning. If they're on time, they make the nearly 500 miles in 10.5 hours, or just under 50 miles an hour. We joined the westbound Cannonball one rainy day last summer at Lafayette, Indiana, for the last half of the trip into St. Louis. Lafayette is a college town, but on the average, only 6 people a day board the westbound Cannonball here. We took our ride last June because we thought it might be our last chance. The Norfolk and Western had a petition before the Interstate Commerce Commission asking permission to take the Cannonball off. But a week later, the railroad was ordered to keep the train running, at least until July 1970. According to the railroad's figures, about 30 passengers start with the train in Detroit. 54 more get on at stops along the way, and 40-some get off. That leaves fewer than 40 passengers on board when the train pulls into St. Louis. But are passengers deserting the railroads, or are the railroads driving them away? On the Cannonball, we found some N&W employees who contend it's the railroad's fault.
Oh, the service is not as good as it used to be. We don't have as good cars. We don't have an on-time move like we used to. Facilities, dining, and so on is not as good as it used to be. General maintenance is poor.
Why is this?
I haven't been able to figure that one out.
Critics also claim the railroads deliberately let passenger coaches get dirty and run down. We found a train that was rather old and shabby, but more drab and dingy than actually dirty. The coaches are 20 to 30 years old, and they're showing their years. Another complaint charges that railroads deliberately run trains behind schedule to discourage passengers. The Cannonball stayed very close to the printed timetable when we were on it, but then as a check for several days after that, we noted the arrival time at one Central Illinois station. 6 times out of 10, the Cannonball was at least 30 minutes late, and one day it ran almost 2 hours behind. A Norfolk and Western spokesman has claimed only one train in 20 runs even 20 minutes late. Maybe we hit a bad week. Who takes trains these days? Some people because they don't drive and find a train less expensive than a bus or plane. There are others who just enjoy the train, who find it a leisurely, relaxed way to travel. Then there are some, like this woman, who just wanted her grandchildren to see what train travel is like, while there are still passenger trains left. No one we talk to wants to see the Cannonball go off.
I'm taking the train, and I happened to get on the Cannonball, mainly because of the expense and because I like the train better than any other way of going.
I don't think I want to travel by plane. I'm used to with the train.
Well, I suppose I'd have to take a bus. And that's worse than the old milk can.
You wouldn't fly on the short hop?
No, I don't think so. It's like to New York. It's over before you've eaten your meal.
I'll always be haunted by train whistles, I guess. I've just flown back from Tennessee, but you can't beat train travel, I'm afraid.
Where have you been?
Fort Wayne, Indiana, for my granddaughter's wedding.
Do you travel the Cannonball often?
Well, I have traveled at least 6 times since my daughter's lived here. That's the reason I've been going back and forth.
How will you go to Fort Wayne when the Cannonball is gone?
I won't be going. I guess I don't know. I'd have to fly, and I don't care about that. This is the most convenient. I like it. I've been very well satisfied. So please don't take it off in case I want to go back.
From the Vault, celebrating the rich heritage of Central Illinois. Sponsored by Sunset Funeral Homes. Remember, celebrate, heal.
Listen to the jingle, the rumble, and the roar as she glides along the woodland, o'er the hills and by the shore. Hear the mighty rush of the engine, hear those lonesome hobos call, traveling through the jungle on the Wabash Cannonball.
Many railroads have taken off their full dining cars and, like the Cannonball, substituted a coach with a snack bar. Critics claim the railroads removed the diners to discourage passengers. The railroads say they took off the dining cars to reduce expenses and thus give the trains a better chance to break even.
This way out, please. Rear the car for Litchfield. The train is on time. This way out, please. Rear the car. Litchfield going to be next.
The railroads say crew wages in general are a major expenditure, and are inflated by what the railroads charge are unreasonable work rules. During its 10.5-hour run, the Cannonball, for example, goes through 4 engine crews. The crews change at Montpelier, Ohio, Peru, Indiana, and Decatur, and each gets paid for a full 8-hour day. Routing also poses a problem. Coming into St. Louis, the Cannonball crosses the Mississippi just a few miles north of the Gateway Arch. But the train is then routed in a circle to the north and then west of the city. It takes nearly an hour to complete the trip to Union Station at the west edge of the St. Louis business district. Like most railroad depots these days, Union Station is a relic of another era. St. Louis has always been a major transportation hub. It is the western regional headquarters for the Norfolk and Western. But the N&W is now trying to get out of the passenger train business. Vice President Walter Clement.
At the present time, the railroads in this country are losing $200 million a year out-of-pocket cost for the operation of passenger trains. Our business is to serve the public. Now, we can't serve the public in an efficient way if we go broke. You don't go back and pay $250,000 for a simple coach that people are not, obviously, are not riding. You don't pay $350,000 for a new diner. So each day the equipment gets 1 day older, a week older, and so forth. I've worked for the Norfolk and Western for 35 years and had a lot of association with other railroads. I have never heard any supervisor or official or any management of any of these railroads show any inclination to deliberately downgrade a passenger train. Never.
The stories and people you remember from Central Illinois. Once again, From the Vault with Matt Metcalf.
As rail ridership declined, the future of passenger rail service in Central Illinois hung in the balance. Once again, Paul Davis and the last ride of the Cannonball.
While the railroads petition to take trains like the Cannonball out of service, this man seeks to keep them running. He is Anthony Haswell, a Chicago attorney who's chairman and founder of the National Association of Railroad Passengers, a nonprofit organization with over 5,000 members.
Well, the goals of the association are to represent train riders and also those who would like to ride trains but at the present time find that the service will not meet their needs. We are not in business to preserve each and every train. We recognize that passenger service has to be greatly restructured, and there are going to have to be some more discontinuances and abolition of wasteful parallel services. In the end, it comes down to environmental considerations. We simply cannot expand a great deal further airport and highway facilities. The railroads have the beauty of the first place being already in existence, and the second place of being able to handle, say, up to 10 to 15 times as many people in the same time span as one lane of expressway. So we have a mode of transportation which has tremendous capabilities for moving people with the least possible damage to the environment.
But even Haswell doesn't see much need for the Cannonball as it's scheduled now.
Looking at it from a broader viewpoint, this train is an all-day run between Detroit and St. Louis. With airplanes between those 2 points, not many people are going to ride a train all day for 10 hours. To the extent there is a market along that route, it would be, say, into Detroit in the morning and back in the evening, or into St. Louis in the morning and back in the evening. I'm thinking the first instance from Fort Wayne, and the second instance from Danville and the towns on west in Illinois. But this train is scheduled in both directions exactly the opposite.
Yet you have spoken favorably of the decision by the Norfolk and Western to reschedule the Bluebird out of Decatur.
Why, certainly. I think that is a perfect example of what I'm talking about, because that train will leave Decatur at 7 or 7:30 in the morning and offer a service into Chicago for the benefit of people down in Decatur who want to go up to shop or to have doctor's appointments or to conduct business or whatever. Then they'll be able to come back in the afternoon at 5 o'clock. That's precisely a pattern of service which will meet a need and a market.
During the 60s, while other railroads continued getting out of passenger service, the Illinois Central was an exception. It actively promoted trains like the Panama Limited and the City of New Orleans. The IC was especially proud of its mini corridor, providing service from Chicago to the University of Illinois at Champaign-Urbana and to Southern Illinois University at Carbondale. But at IC headquarters in Chicago, policy now appears to be changing. The line recently petitioned to discontinue its Mid-American from Chicago to Memphis via the mini corridor, and also the Governor's Special from Chicago to Springfield. Henry Davenport is the IC's Vice President for Passenger Services. He talked about the mini corridor.
It has not been profitable. It has been less, or has resulted in less loss to us than our previous operation.
The Commerce Commission ordered hearings on the IC's petition to discontinue the Mid-American.
It's very possible that we may be in a situation where the service that we have now and the way it's structured and the way it fits into our society will have to die, and something else will have to be born to take its place.
Railroad men who reflect on the plight of the passenger trains today are quick to point out that freight has always been their biggest source of revenue, and freight service continues to prosper today. But when it comes to long-distance city-to-city passenger service, most railroad experts agree the only real solution will be some form of federal subsidy.
Present administration is moving in the direction of setting up an entirely separate company to operate passenger trains, which would simply deal with the railroads to the extent that the railroads would still control the tracks. I think this has a great deal to recommend it. We certainly hope that some money will be found in this session of Congress to start modernizing rail passenger service. As I said before, the government has spent billions and billions of dollars and continues to do so, and this is aside from any amounts recovered by user charges in building highways and airports and airway facilities. We have a massively and completely unbalanced transportation system, which we've now got to correct.
The opinion appears to be growing in Congress as well as among the railroads that the nation has need for a system of passenger trains, but that it is unrealistic to expect private corporations alone to keep the trains operating at a financial loss. There is increasing support for some form of federal subsidy. And although passengers appear to be abandoning trains now, there are some who see a day when Americans will forsake the crowded highways and airways and turn to new high-speed trains as a comfortable means of getting from place to place without further polluting our environment.
It was later that year, 1970, that Congress created Amtrak to provide passenger service nationwide. That'll do it for us from the vault. I'm Matt Metcalf. We'll see you next time.